So as we get started, because we have a robust schedule today for you, particularly with a lot of great panelists, I want to get started. My name is Naya Blair Hackworth. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I serve as the Director of Inclusion in the NCAA Office of Inclusion. We are excited to partner with the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, not only for today's session, but also with our Para-College Inclusion Project, which you'll learn more about today, where we have individuals from our NCAA diversity committees helping to work on this project alongside with so many great individuals that you'll hear from today, as well as others. Please note that this session is recorded. Also, the Office of Inclusion, one of our 5 core areas is the disability area. And later this summer, we will be releasing to the membership, you all, disability guides that can help you and your campus and individuals to think about diversity and inclusion from an inclusive lens, from a disability inclusive lens. So look forward to sharing that with you in the coming month. So without further delay, I want to introduce Sarah Wahimi, who is the Senior Director of Collegiate Partnerships at the Usopc. Sarah?
Yes, thanks, Naya. It's a pleasure to be here, and we're so grateful to be part of the conversation today. So in a nutshell, yes, I serve as a Senior Director of Collegiate Partnerships, and we have an esteemed team with us here today. And quite frankly, our goal, we have 2 of them. One, we want to update the college landscape a little bit and let you know all this awesome organic adaptive work that's already happening. We also want to unveil the details of the first ever coordinated partnership with the NCAA Office of Inclusion and our USOPC office, and that is our Para-College Inclusion Project. So we've got some exciting stuff to tackle. First, I'll kind of run through the roster here. I am joined today by Julie Duslier. She serves as the Chief of Paralympic Sport at the USOPC. And I don't know, but anyway, give a wave if you're there, Julie. Also, we have Zach, who serves as the Commissioner of the City University of New York Athletics Conference. Zach has done a ton of work with us, and we're so grateful for his time. Thank you for joining. We have Tiffany Grimes from the University of Alabama. She serves as a Senior Deputy AD, SWA, and Chief Diversity Officer. That's a lot of layers there, Tiffany. Thank you for adding this work to that list as well. We appreciate it. And we also, from the University of Alabama, we have Dr. Brent Harden. He serves as the Athletic Director for Adaptive Sport. Dr. Harden, thank you for joining. And we have our esteemed athlete joining us for the conversation today. We are so excited. Toby Fawehimi is an amazing athlete. He has been in 3 Paralympic Games, and he is also a more recent graduate from the University of Texas, Arlington, where he was a student athlete on the varsity track and field team and is inching his way into the coaching ranks. So he's seen it all. Toby, thank you for joining us as well. Awesome. All right, so I think to get this started, there's no better way to convey the power of college sports, and especially in the adaptive space, than through a short video on those athletes that are living this life. And we're so excited to have Toby share his firsthand experience with us in a bit. But if we can, let's kick off with a video. I love that video. I get goosebumps every time I see it, but it's such an awesome portrayal of the journey. Really, it's not just making it to the world stage, it's the journey to get there. So thank you all for those who do support adaptive sport and those who are interested in making this world even better. So with that, I'd like to kind of kick off and give a little bit of that background that we talked about. And so we just finished last summer, we had the Tokyo Games for Paralympics, and we just came home this past March from the Beijing Paralympic Games. And those 2 experiences those alone tell an amazing story. So I'm going to lean on Julie here to kick us off and tell us a little bit about those footprints and all those college ties that are organically happening in those 2 realms of sport. Julie.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. So just to give a quick recap of the importance of the collegiate athletic space, and the impact that it has on Team USA, I'm going to share a few facts here from both the recent Tokyo Summer Games last fall, as well as the Beijing Winter Games that we just wrapped up here in March. So when we look at our Tokyo team, we had 242 Paralympians. Half of them were current, former, or incoming collegiate athletes from 76 different institutions. The team overall earned 104 medals and finished third in the overall medal table, which was our best finish since 2008. And all told, 55% of our Paralympic medals came from 70 collegiate athletes. That group in total earned 92 medals. Notable performances included our men's wheelchair basketball team. 100% of that team competed collegiately. They won their second consecutive gold medal in Tokyo. Nick Mayhew in track and field competed for Radford, and he won 3 golds and 1 silver in Tokyo. And Tatiana McFadden, who has competed for the University of Illinois, won gold, silver, and bronze in Tokyo. Illinois led schools overall with 20 members of our Tokyo Paralympic team, followed by Arizona with 8, Texas Arlington with 8, and Wisconsin Whitewater with 6. So moving into the winter stats, overall Team USA finished 4th in the medal count with 20 medals, 5th in the gold medal count with 6. And although the collegiate landscape is a bit smaller on the winter side, 25% of our team and 41% of our medalists had ties to collegiate athletics. Notable performances in Beijing included the sled hockey team, who won their 4th consecutive gold medal. 41% of that team competed collegiately. Other notable individual performances included Sydney Peterson, a cross-country skier from St. Lawrence University, who won a gold, silver, and bronze in her first Paralympic appearance. Also winning multiple medals were Jake Adikoff and his guide Sam Wood, who competed respectively for Bowdoin and Middlebury. They won gold, silver, and silver. And the University of New Hampshire had the most student athletes on our Winter Paralympic team for Beijing with 4, followed by the University of Illinois with 2. So as you can see, those stats really illustrate the importance of the relationships in the collegiate athletic space in terms of supporting Team USA and our performance on the field of play. And so with that, Sarah, I'll turn it back over to you.
Man, goosebumps, Julie. Those stats are phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing. And in that vein, I want to kick it and give Toby here a heads up. You're next. You have been there. You've been that athlete. You've had that experience. And also you've been in the college realm as well. So I would love, although you did it in reverse order, you were on the world stage before you even hit the college stage. Toby, that's amazing. So if you would please give us some insight on that journey that you had and how they kind of work together a little bit.
Right. First, I want to say thank you guys for having me here. It's a pleasure and an honor. Actually, this is my 10-year anniversary for starting the Paralympic Games. I started in 2012. I was a junior in high school. And one day, this guy by the name of Paul had walked up to me after we had a track meet. After the long jump had just completed, I ended up just winning the long jump. He walked up to me, handed me a card, and it read disability sports. At the time, I was very close. I want to say close-minded, I guess, because I have felt like as somebody who has competed with able-bodied people my whole life, I kind of felt like he was putting me in a box, right? So Paul is talking to me about Paralympics and stuff, and I'm like, sounds like a fairy tale to me. So Paul ends up walking away, and I end up throwing away the card, right? My coach comes up to me after the meet, and he's like, hey, did somebody hand you a card? And I was like, I didn't get a card. I didn't get a card from anybody. And then we got back to school on Monday, and my jumps coach by the name of Shannon Utley, she came up to me. She was like, hey, did somebody hand you a card? I said, yeah, somebody handed me a card. I don't know what any of this is about, but, but she was like, hey, well, this is the Paralympics. You get to travel the world. You get to wear USA gear. You get to compete in millions and thousands in front of millions and thousands of people. And I was like, there's no way. Like, what are you saying right now? But lo and behold, this opportunity changed my life. This opportunity allowed me to step into a world that I never knew was there. My first Paralympic track meet was in Arizona. We have a meet called Desert Challenge, which they hold every year. And I tell you, and I kid you not, I couldn't even put everything together of what I was seeing. I was seeing blind people long jump. I was seeing people with no arms and legs do things that I've never seen before because I didn't know this stuff was out here. But I don't want to, take everybody's time, but like I said, that opportunity right there changed everything for me. I was able to compete in 3 games. So 2012, which was the London Games, 16 in Rio, and then this past year, Tokyo Games. So it's been crazy. It's been crazy. I've been able to get the world record in the triple jump in my class, which is the F46-47 class, which is the arm disability. And for those who don't know, I was born with brachial plexus injury. So that's what puts me in that category. So with the Paralympics, every event has a category. So the categories go by your disability and the severity of your disability. So yeah, it's been a crazy journey for me.
Toby, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I think we'll come back to you and dive more into the college experience too. So you're right. You hit the world young. So thank you for representing our country so well, and congrats on your world records. That's incredible. Awesome. Well, I love it too, because I think what we see with Toby is as he started, was that notion of separation versus integration. And so we'll come back to Toby to talk about how he integrated into the varsity track and field team. But I want to also kind of acknowledge that not all the adaptive sports are constructed in the same way. And I think it's almost to their advantage. I'll be honest, I did some studying of women's sports and their evolution way back when. And a lot of women's sports started in the School of Nursing, the School of Ballet, just all across campus. And I would say the adaptive sport is similar. So we're going to get a snapshot of how Alabama operates. So I want to kind of shift over to Dr. Hardin and see if you can share a little bit about how the disability space works at Alabama and how your adaptive sport program has grown.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah, and good to be with you, everyone. We started our program back in 2003, and you're right, Sarah. I've been thinking about that a lot with the 50th anniversary of Title IX and how adapted athletics programs are housed in so many different places on campus. And it's the same with us. When we started in 2003, we started in an academic program. And really the only reason we did was because I was a professor in an academic program and we started the program, and that's been our home. And we've become a standalone program at the university over the last 20 years. We're not a part of athletics. We do have high performance teams in men's and women's wheelchair basketball and men's and women's wheelchair tennis. Our strategic plan has us adding para swimming and track and field by 2028, and we're working hard on adding those things in. I think the other thing that I would point out about us is I think our structure is not really different from a lot of other programs in the country. Some programs are in recreation, some programs are in academic departments like us, some are in student life, and then there are very few that are in athletics. And really, when I think about where we've been and where we're going, I think that's the goal that I would really like to shoot for, is more of that integration. I think was the word that you used, Sarah, instead of the separation. I think that's where we're really going to see the big strides as we go forward. And when I look at the growth of where we've been since I've started, it's really exciting. I think especially on the international level, when you look at what's happening and how corporate sponsors and the media is taking more of an interest in Paralympic athletes. I feel like the national teams and the international movement, the Paralympic movement, is a little ahead of us in the collegiate movement right now. We're still separated to some extent, where we're coming together more, and the name change from USOC to USOPC is a good example of that.
Well said, and good segue actually as well. I think you're right. Different spaces are evolving in different ways, and we can certainly learn, and try to channel those benefits across lanes. With that, I want to kick it to Julie. Speaking of international and just the notion of how athletes are being discovered and making their way to the international stage. Julie, how do you find these amazing Team USA athletes? How did Paul find Toby? And then also, on the international front, how are those channels working? So would love your insight on that pipeline evolution.
Happy to share. And as I listened to Toby talk about how he got involved in Paralympic sport, I think I can tell that story from the other side of the coin, so to speak, which might illustrate things a little bit. We at US Paralympics work very closely with all of our sport national governing bodies to continually identify athletes who are eligible for Paralympics. And those pipelines, I'll use that term very loosely and very generally, span a number of different spectrums. We've got athletes like Toby who are integrated into programs as they come up through high school, or even sometimes the college ranks, and then learn about Paralympics after they've been competing in sport for some number of years. We have other athletes who start their careers in a local sports club. It might be, tagging along with their brothers and sisters in the respective sport. It may be a disability or adaptive specific program, depending on the community and the sport. So all sorts of entry points into the pipeline, so to speak. The interesting flip side to Toby's story, we were actually past the London long list deadline in 2012. And that's a deadline that all of the National Paralympic Committees and National Olympic Committees have to meet in order to get our athletes in the system for the upcoming Olympic and Paralympic Games. And our track and field director at the time, I remember the morning, she came running into my office and said, "We found this high school long jumper who is medal potential right now, and we have to get him on the London long list." And that athlete was Toby. So we called in a favor to our friends at the London Organizing Committee and got Toby added to the long list after the deadline. And lo and behold, he made the team and has had a very, very successful career since then. But that happens very frequently. And, one of the things I've found, Sarah, and I think this will be the segue into one of our topics later on about talking about awareness of the Paralympic movement, is that the more we can educate, whether it's coaches, officials, athletes, parents, they identify a lot of our athletes for us. The number of times a coach or an official will reach out and say, "I was working a competition, in X venue, whether at the high school or the collegiate or the club level around the country, and I found an athlete who I think is eligible for Paralympics, and I want to get them connected to the sport national governing body." So that happens very, very frequently, which makes the media and the promotion all that much more important so that more people are aware. Internationally, sport is growing in the Paralympic movement by leaps and bounds. Really from a performance perspective, games over games, we could share all sorts of crazy statistics, but a unique one that I will share just to illustrate how quickly things are growing internationally. From Athens to Beijing to London, we did some analysis of women's results in swimming and track and field, where conditions are consistent, sports are timed, it's apples to apples. And over those two quadrenniums, the gold medalist in Athens in certain events would not have finaled in Beijing because the field moved that much. And then the same thing happened again from Beijing to London. So a lot of growth in different sports, particularly in women's sports internationally, where the field sizes tend to be a little bit smaller than some of the men's fields in sports like a swimming or a track and field. So that's where the collegiate space becomes so important, because that is a great area for our athletes to be competing consistently and regularly and honing their skills to keep up with their internationally competitive peers.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so exciting. And as you talk about the growth and the trajectory, we were just starting to scratch the surface in the college space, quite honestly. So we know the space has been super organic. And I think the question is, man, what if it was more coordinated? So, oh man. So imagine what it'll be the next quadrennium, right? Thank you, Julie, so much. And so with that, what I want to do is shift into the project at hand. And so next, what we're going to do is start to unpack what we call our para-college inclusion project. So Zach, I'm going to put you on alert, followed by Tiffany here. And in this regard, I guess I should paint a little bit of a picture for how this came to be. So in short, the pandemic caused so much disruption everywhere. And I can tell you it was especially concerning in our college sports space. As many of you know, the dynamics of schools closing and competition shutting down And the financial stress of all of it was real. And we saw a number of sports starting to be dropped in the pandemic. I will also acknowledge in an interesting way, in the crisis, that also yielded a lot of passion. And so we heard from organizations, there was over 31 organizations, over 80 people that joined a table to say, hey, we are passionate, we care about broad-based scholastic programming in the United States. How do we help keep our Olympic and Paralympic sports strong? And so from that, we launched what we called the USOPC. It was the College Sports Sustainability Think Tank. So long phrase, but really in capturing a sentiment about protecting something we love and how do we preserve this legacy, if not make it stronger. And there was 4 prongs of that, but one of those prongs was specific to the Paralympic inclusion space. And I think some of it is low-hanging fruit, and we're so grateful for Amy Wilson and Naya at the NCAA that we've never had a formalized project coordinated across our 2 landscapes. And so this is the first. And so with that, I want to kick it over to Zach and have Zach, who's going to chair this work, explain and unpack the facets of the work. And then we're going to kick it over to Tiffany to talk about how are we going to get this done. So first we'll lead off with Zach. Zach, thanks for unpacking this for us.
Thank you, Sarah, so much. You know, it's funny, it's come full circle because I was one of the people that I was being reached out to spread the awareness and see how we could engage. And now, a couple of years later, I'm the one trying to pass the baton to others to spread the message. And the whole point of the Paralympic think tank is really three-pronged approach is to really utilize USOPC and the NCAA, 2 giants in a space that no one else has on the planet. No one else on the planet has the Olympic and Paralympic movement combined with the massive infrastructure that NCAA offers to provide our athletes with the resources and the space to excel and give them a platform for that. So combining the 2 is really an important, and partnering to work this together to the benefit of adaptive sports programming is massive. With 1,100 schools in the NCAA within the 3 divisions, there's a lot of potential there to unfold and unpack and provide a pipeline to Teams USA. Second one, obviously, is the awareness that I just mentioned, cross-promoting the research that Julie talked about. You know, one of the things that I found out early on was, hey, I have student athletes from the CUNY system on the USA teams. How's that possible? I didn't know about it. Oh, they're on the Paralympic side. We have a sitting volleyball athlete. We have a powerlifting athlete. I was like floored. I said, okay, how can we support them better? So just having that sense and that background and the research to better understand what's already happening in the space, what schools have recreation and collegiate teams, and how we can support them and work better to make sure that they realize their full potential. And the last prong is the connection building. Obviously, everything happens with collaboration. I know that I couldn't get my program off the ground if I didn't collaborate with all the people in the space in New York City. Same way USOPC and the NCAA, we need to pick up every rock and find out every student athlete that's interested, that the opportunity is there, like Toby, to make sure that they reach their full potential and become part of Team USA. So it's a lot of work, but we have the infrastructure and the resources to make it happen. And we're going to work hard on those 3 prongs going forward.
Well said, Zach. Thank you so much for that. And it's uncharted, but man, the potential is abundant for sure. And so with that, I'm going to kick it over to Tiffany. Tiffany, talk to us a little bit about how we're going to kind of get this work underway.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Well, first I have to say that the committee is incredibly excited. And I think our aggressive timeline is a reflection of the excitement of everybody who has been gathered together to do this work. So our next steps is that we are dividing into 4 what we call tactical teams: an awareness team, wheelchair basketball team, wheelchair tennis team, and para track and field team. These individual tactical teams will meet about 2 to 3 times during the course of the summer and be prepared to have a final recommendation to make to the larger group and then present it on to the USOPC Collegiate Advisory Council, as well as the appropriate NCAA councils and committees in October. I think one of the great things about this opportunity is that there are going to be a lot of different constituents that are coming together to give broad perspective so that we don't make any missteps. But to Zach's point, this is a really unique opportunity in that we have USOPC coming together with the NCAA. So there are a lot of eyes, thoughts, insights, and perspective that are going to come to the table to make sure that we honor, respect, and move forward, advocate for the sport in the manner that it deserves.
Well said. Thank you, Tiffany. And yes, you're so right that this table is set in a really dynamic way too. I guess I should acknowledge Tiffany and Zach and many others have actually did the service with us as part of our USOPC think tank, and we are carrying them over this project, so double duty for sure. We also are so grateful for Naya and for Amy Wilson in helping pull together a stakeholder group from NCAA inclusion committees. And so from both tables, we have 8 on each side, so 16 total. And then as Tiffany said, we got to pull in some experts. We need the Toby who knows track and field and how that works. We need some of those tennis experts, and we're going to kind of dabble in those areas of expertise over the summer. So if anyone on this call has an appetite or an interest, we welcome more brains around the table. So there's an open call for help here. But with that, what I'd like to do here as we kind of shift into the second half hour here is really lean into each one of the pockets that Zach and Tiffany kind of described. So kind of kicking off, there's this notion of we got to understand the space. And really when you understand that space and we do the homework and we understand where programs are operating, man, then we can really start to partner better, but also help athletes find their pathway better. So in that vein, I will acknowledge and let everybody know that our staff has partnered with the NCAA research staff. And also we have partnered with NERSA, which is the National Association for Intramural and Recreational Sport as well, to really see how far and wide can we reach and find out where programs are occurring. And hopefully that will facilitate even better communication. So that's out of the gates, that's happening. But what I want to do is shift a little bit. So Toby, you're back on the hot seat again. We're going to shift back to you. But I want to hear and have the whole group, we need to learn from how is this space currently working? And so Toby, how the heck did you find University of Texas, Arlington? And then the other part of your question, since you're in the coaching realm now, how are you finding the next wave of talent? So thank you for sharing some light on this topic.
Oh yeah, no problem. Ooh, well, first I'd like to say I wasn't recruited through an adaptive program. By God's grace, I was able to have an athletic capability to where I was able to get scholarships, and I was jumping pretty well in high school. But one thing I always like to say is no magic happens in your comfort zone, but a lot of magic happened in UTA, making me feel comfortable at home. I knew at first that I wanted to get out of state. I didn't want to stay in Texas. I wanted to be somewhere else. But one thing I will say is that the coach at UTA really made me feel comfortable, and it made me feel like I was at home. The high school I went to is literally 15 minutes down the road from UTA, which kind of made me want to get away. But at the same time, I never knew that was actually what I needed at the time. So the coach was really persistent. He made me feel comfortable. He made me feel like when you get on this team, it's not going to be like you're a number. You're actually a part of the program. And everybody in the system, from the coaches to the athletes to the athletic trainers, everybody made me feel comfortable in my own skin, which is one reason why I'm extremely happy that I made the decision to go to UTA without even knowing prior that UTA had adaptive programs, had a wheelchair basketball team, had all types of opportunities for people like me to be a part of a program like UTA. And even from like the teachers on staff, we had a lot of past Paralympic teachers and also coaches that dealt with a lot of things in the Paralympic realm. So that was an amazing thing for me. And also just the fact that I was granted the opportunity to work with Paralympic athletes. So in me being a collegiate athlete, I was also able to spot out other athletes that probably didn't know. Deja Young is another one of these, a great and amazing Paralympic athlete, maybe 3, 4, 5-time gold medalist, and one day at an indoor track meet, I was standing next to my coach and I had noticed, I was like, I think maybe, I'm not sure, she looks like, but I stepped out of my own comfort zone and said, hey, Deja, this is the Paralympics. This is an opportunity. Just like how Paul said to me, I said, I have to pass it along to somebody else because I like to also give back to what gave to me. And it's been like that time and time again, where I have noticed a lot of other athletes with disabilities. And I want to say, hey, this is an opportunity to be a part of something that you may not have known was out there. And I think that's an important part, that we need a lot more people, advocates, and a lot more people to step into places. And it's not just us, but we need everybody, because it's a lot of, I like to call it superheroes. It's a lot of superheroes out here that don't know, that this is a world that they could be a part of and to show. And our job is to inspire. Also, we want to do this because we love it. We do this because we love it. But at the same time, regardless of what your disability is, you want to feel like you belong. And with even having the feeling of belonging to something, you want to stand for what you believe in, so me even finding, UTA and finding the Paralympics, it has made a huge impact. So like I said, I also like to give back to what gave to me, which allowed me to step into the coaching role as well. So even coaching on his own has been great. So even from kids to high school athletes to collegiate athletes, I've tried to dip my hand in a little bit of everything. And then that's been great as well, because now I'm bringing awareness to the Paralympic movement. And I think it's something that everybody needs to know about. So it's been amazing.
Wow, thank you, Toby. And I love it. I think nobody asked you to do it, but you became an ambassador for the whole space. So thank you for doing that, and for the difference you're making in the next generation. So that's awesome. Cool. Thank you, Toby. I want to also kind of lean in. And so we heard from like the athlete journey perspective. I also want to hear, Zach, you launched a whole new operation. Your adaptive sport initiative was really creative. And I'm curious to have you kind of unpack for the group, how did that come into creation? And quite frankly, how did you showcase this and perpetuate this energy? So please unpack that project with us.
Well, I want to shout out to Usopc, because the reason I started down this path is because of Usopc. And they had a summit in Colorado Springs. And I was one of the invitees because we wanted to do something for our 11,000 students with disabilities in the CUNY system across 25 campuses in New York City. So I got into a more of a recreational space initially, partnering up with folks in the New York City area that provided that kind of service for the population of New York City. But when I got out there, I really opened my eyes to a lot of things from the people that were there. And to some of the points made earlier, all of the collegiate programs that were in existence and still are in existence are all over the place, and very few have connections to the athletics. And I always thought it confused me. I said, well, they are playing sports, so it makes sense for us to have a stake in it. So from a CUNY perspective, I'm the commissioner of a conference office. We have 25 campuses all over New York City. How the heck are we going to manage this one? But to me, it was an opportunity rather than an obstacle, because I looked at it as, how do we have 25 campuses that will benefit from something that we do rather than one campus? So we did a CUNY-wide initiative that formed CUNY-wide teams. So 2 years of pandemic in between, we just completed our year one with NWBA, not just with our men's wheelchair basketball, with a women's wheelchair basketball team as well. So we managed to do that because, again, at USOPC Summit, I met Ryan Martin, who is a wheelchair basketball player, professional player overseas, who has his own foundation in Connecticut. And somehow I convinced him to come and join us with Team CUNY. And I give all the credit to him and everything that he's been able to build up with my support. So we've kind of wanted to make sure that it stays in the athletics realm, but having that ability to impact more really was my approach, is not just the current student population, but also sending the message that we're the only entity in the Northeast. Closest is Edinburgh in Western Pennsylvania. So no one else has this. So I said, look, not only New York City, but we could really make a statement and impact for people with disabilities in the entire Northeast and encourage them to come to New York City and to compete and look at us as an option. And a lot of the programs are in the Midwest and West and South, but there was nothing up there for us, or very little up there for us. So I wanted that as an option. And thankfully, I was able to build that up and get the right person on board. And then we've grown, and thankfully Ryan's as aggressive as I am to make sure that we don't just talk about it, but we actually get it done. And so I'm thrilled that we got year one with wheelchair basketball. We just got wheelchair tennis. We just completed 3 months of wheelchair tennis. Encouragement of folks to participate and of weekly sessions. So, we've got 2 sports down. We're hoping to get further, but, we'll see how it's navigated. But we're super happy with where we've gotten this far along. But it was really the USOPC initiative that got me going, and I wanted to make sure that the students of CUNY had that opportunity.
Well, thank you, Zach. That is an awesome testament of just what connection can do. Because I think we held that summit just so we could learn what the heck is going on. This is awesome. We kind of looked at our Rio stats and said, this is an audience we need to engage. So that is awesome how the dominoes can kind of ripple through and make a bigger impact. Thank you so much for your good work and for sharing. And so with that, it does bring to the importance of our second prong. So 1 is understanding the space we're in. Number 2 is kind of looking at that broader awareness. And obviously we're seeing examples of that all over, how athletes can perpetuate that growth in the sport just by being aware. And we're seeing the same thing from the administration side as well. So as we dive into the second pocket of work on the awareness side, I want to lean into this. We're going to take 2 different angles here. So 1 is we're going to lean into Tiffany. And we're going to hear a little bit just from her own personal experience, how she grew in her awareness and knowing that she came to Alabama about 5 years ago into a space that was so organic and growing, and talk a little bit about her awareness growth. And then we're going to shift over and go to Julie and talk about how this actually ties in really well to some of the international work that's taking place right now as well. So Tiffany, thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. So you're right, Sarah. I did arrive at Alabama about 5.5 years now, 6 in October, so maybe a little over that. When I originally got to campus, I was working in a very traditional compliance function, and had the great fortune of having my role expanded and becoming our SWA in December of 2019. So I was in that role for about 4 months when the pandemic hit. And so, like many others, I became aware of para-athletics, adaptive athletics during that time. Interestingly enough, my awareness came from our student athletes. And I think one of the great things that I see when you get to work on a college campus is that you are going to learn 10 times more from your student athletes than probably they could ever learn from you. And so through a lot of conversations, through a lot of time spending with them on what they would like to see from a diversity, equity, inclusion standpoint, adaptive athletics continue to come up. I think part of that is we're at a university, and Dr. Harden can attest to this, where our tagline is where legends are made. And so all of our students come to Alabama with this expectation that they are going to be legendary, and they thrive with that expectation, and they relish in it. And they exceed all of our expectations and truly do have an opportunity to become legendary. But I think within athletics as a whole, when I say athletics, I mean adaptive athletics and intercollegiate athletics as one. In athletics as a whole, what you've seen are really great leaders in Greg Byrne and in Dr. Harden in creating this culture of not just being excellent, but thriving to be elite. And so as a result, our athletes, they don't differentiate between able-bodied or adaptive. They respect great athletes. And so there's this very organic synergy between our athletes here at Alabama that allows them to want to learn more about each other's sports, how they train, how they prep, their mindset when they're going into competition. And for us as administrators, it has been fulfilling, insightful, and inspirational to watch that happen. I also would say our coaches have a great respect for each other as well, because as we all know, adaptive athletics at Alabama has experienced a lot of confetti during their time. So they win a lot of national championships. And when you're a coach and you want to coach great athletes and you want to experience that confetti as well, it doesn't matter what the other person is coaching. You can always get tips and tricks of the trade. And so I think we found that synergy amongst our coaching staffs. And it's been really, really healthy and helpful for us to be able to say, we're not a football school, we're a championship school. And that means all athletes under any umbrella at this institution. And I don't want to speak for Dr. Harden, but I think we align in that some of the areas where we probably could create more awareness here at Alabama is administratively and from a staff and faculty standpoint. And I'm excited to work with him and his staff so that we can kind of build those bridges and carry out some of that work here locally.
Love that. And we're gonna, so Dr. Harden, you're on the lineup to come back to these pieces of alignment. I love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And how cool, from your personal to the athlete, to the coach, to the infrastructure. I mean, you're hitting on so many pieces here that as the energy and awareness grows, so does all the connectivity. So thank you so much for sharing. That is awesome. Well, let's gonna shift over here to Julie. Julie, please share a bit. I know this is the awareness prong is a hot topic at the international Paralympic level, as well as in our building at the USOPC, and our name change is a reflection of that priority. So please share with us what's happening there and how this work in the college space can align.
Sure, happy to share that, Sarah. For a little history of how we got to this awareness piece, because we throw that term around a lot and talk about how important it is to us at the USOPC. We did some strategic planning back in late 2017 and most of 2018, looking at the LA 2028 opportunity 10 years out after we were awarded the LA Games. And, in that strategic planning process, probably very much in line with the same things all of you in collegiate athletics look at and know that you need to make your program successful. We were looking at revenue, and we were looking at, marketing and philanthropy. We were looking at sustaining high performance. We were looking at recruiting new athletes and identifying new athletes into the sport pipelines. And those are sort of the things that come up over and over again in strategic planning conversations. And as our conversation evolved, we landed on this topic of growing Paralympic awareness, because bottom line, everything else that we came up with in these strategic planning conversations could be positively impacted by the growth in awareness. It would impact revenue, it would impact athletes, it would impact coaching, it would impact programs. So it obviously rose to be our number one strategic priority. And we really looked at it for the long term, trying to capitalize on what we have in front of us with LA 28 now in just 6 years away, as opposed to 10 years away when we started this conversation. But we've done a lot of different things at the USOPC that tie into this campaign. And ultimately, the goal is ensuring that Paralympics is a household name here in the US. It's making sure whether it's, the next athlete in a high school program knows what Paralympics is and doesn't get approached by Paul like Toby did, right? Or it is all of the collegiate administrators out there understanding what Paralympic sport is and who these athletes are and where they fit within the landscape of the respective programs. So many important tie-ins. A couple of things to highlight that we have done at the USOPC. The first one Sarah mentioned is our name change. So we have been a joint National Olympic and Paralympic Committee since 2001, which a lot of people are not aware of because we didn't ever change our name. We just kept calling ourselves the U.S. Olympic Committee, even though we were also running Paralympic sport. So that name change was one of the first major institutional changes that we made coming out of this strategy. And in 2019, we officially changed the name to the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. Incidentally, we actually just changed all the logos on our headquarters building in Colorado Springs 2 weeks ago because that got delayed due to COVID, unfortunately. So now when Sarah and I walk into work, it says U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee on the building, which is fantastic. And that seems like a small thing, but it's really not. It's really showing our commitment as an organization to being inclusive. And again, getting that name out there to show that the two movements work hand in hand here in the US. The other key thing that we did just recently, in conjunction with Tokyo last summer and our partners at NBC, we implemented a specific awareness campaign, and it was hashtag Show the World. We did a number of spots on NBC into Tokyo and then also into Beijing. Some of you probably saw those if you watched the Olympic and Paralympic coverage. There was a social media campaign around that. We tied it into trials and team selection events, really to highlight the Paralympic movement, quick spots, whether on television or on social channels, and had some really great success there in getting that out, and working with some of our significant partners in the marketing space as well. So the last piece of that I would highlight is the support that we are now getting from Toyota specific to Paralympics. Toyota is a worldwide partner, both Olympic and Paralympic at the international level. They do a significant amount of work internationally in Paralympics in terms of supporting a lot of countries around the world, shoring up governance, identifying athletes, doing education programs. One of the things they partnered with us on for both Tokyo and Beijing was to give a specific grant to every single eligible Paralympic athlete for both the Tokyo and Beijing teams last summer and last fall leading into those respective games. And that was a one-of-a-kind first ever program of that sort from any sort of marketing partner. And the feedback I've heard from athletes was pretty significant. I got a lot of 2 thumbs up about that support from Toyota, being the key thing that helped that athlete get a piece of equipment or do something in their training or paying an extra coach or an extra massage therapist, what have you, leading into the games to impact their performance. So all sorts of ties here with awareness. And obviously everything we've talked about partnering in this collegiate space is so important for that as well. So thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Julie. That's a lot of moving parts. And I just kind of popped in the chat. I don't know if I did it right, but there is a link. We actually have kind of a standing page for Show the World at Team USA. So please peruse that if you want to learn more. I don't know, Naya, I'm not tech savvy enough, but there's actually an awesome, very short clip there. If your IT team is able to maybe show that at the end here, that would be really cool too. So that moves us again. You talk about it, we just kind of landed on it there, Julie, and that's that connectivity that happens through awareness. So with that, I want to kind of migrate into 2 more perspectives on that last point. And that is, man, when we understand the space and we are aware of what's going on, when we can connect and really move. And I want to have kind of 2 pockets of thought on this. So I'm going to start off and head back to Alabama. We're going to go to Dr. Harding and have him kind of explain a little bit about some of the connectivity that's already happened on the University of Alabama campus. And Tiffany's going to weigh in with perspective from both the adaptive sport and the varsity space. I then want to kind of round out going back to Zach and talking about just the greater importance of this adaptive connectivity and how the Paralympic sport movement, when connected with college, what that mobility can really do. So with that, I'm going to take it back to Dr. Hardin. And thank you for sharing some of the insights and lessons learned as you guys have been building this awesome program at Alabama.
Okay, yes, absolutely. And I just want to say I'm enjoying this so much. It's really exciting to hear all these things. I feel like I'm an expert in the field, but it's still, really exciting to see the movement that's happening within Paralympics and Collegiate. So thank you all. I think it would be fair to say, and Tiffany and I spoke about this, that we're really at the beginning of what we can do in terms of collaborating with our adapted athletics program on campus and our intercollegiate athletics program. We've had some good successes. I think most of those have been at the student athlete and coaches level. As Tiffany alluded to, one of the things that we have with our coaches is a professional development program where I ask them to get involved with other coaches and mentors and learn. And the coaches across the street in the other sports have been great about that. Coach Saban has come and speaks to us once a year. In our arena, Coach Curry is one of the mentors for our women's wheelchair basketball coach, who is the Assistant USA Women's Paralympic coach now. Coach Murphy, our softball coach, is been on our podcast a couple times, and he's a mentor for our men's wheelchair basketball coach. So those things have been powerful, and Coach Oates has opened up his practice facility so our basketball coaches can come and watch and ask questions and things like that. And we've enjoyed that a lot. And I would say that's probably what I would highlight as our best collaboration so far. Things that I would like to see us do as we're moving forward, and Tiffany and I have made a commitment to start talking about more of these things and see what fits more, is I think that athletics can help, adapted athletics, maybe more in some academic services. Maybe there's some links that we can do there, with tutoring and things like that. There may be some crossover outreach projects. Our student athletes already want to do some of those things together. We already do a lot of those things where we go and read in schools, or we do fundraisers, or those kind of things. We can do those things together with Paralympic athletes and Olympic college athletes on campus already. And potentially even dual marketing, maybe dual matches. Why not have a double header where we have a wheelchair basketball game and then the next game after is a stand-up game, or we have a tennis match where we're playing wheelchair tennis against Auburn and then we play the stand-up match. Those kind of things just, change expectations. And as Julie said earlier, I think when you start to change expectations, it impacts everything. So yeah, there's just lots of little organic steps that we can take, and those things all add up to make a really big difference in the end.
I love that thinking. How cool, the dual events and just the further integration for both the athlete and fan experience. I love that. Very cool. Thank you for sharing. And Tiffany, would love to hear your perspective too from the seat you sit in.
Well, I concur with everything that Dr. Harden said. I think it's really important to be intentional. And a lot of times we throw that word around very lightly and very loosely, but you have to take ownership and accountability and be open to constructive criticism, and also changing your perspective to make sure that this is part of the strategic plan, not just of adaptive athletics or intercollegiate athletics, but that it's a university-wide initiative to further these two entities coming together in a more collaborative fashion. I think for most of us, the global pandemic, I think, took everybody by surprise. And for most of us, we're still trying to figure out what life after looks like. And with an influx of mental health concerns for our student athletes, with social justice initiatives still at a top priority, with Title IX. I mean, there's a whole host of things in the landscape right now in intercollegiate athletics that we're doing our best to navigate through. All of those are incredibly important, but we have to put para athletics, adaptive athletics along with that. And Dr. Harden said it amazingly a couple minutes ago. When you think about this being the 50th anniversary of Title IX and where women's sports have come, and we have much further to go, trust me. But everything in college athletics and intercollegiate athletics and athletics, period, I think what we've seen is that when we're intentional and when we're dedicated and when we put our minds to it, we can change. We can change things, we can improve them, we can make them better. And so that same intentionality that's been put on these other spaces within the landscape right now can be done in this space too. We just have to make sure that it's important and that it's a priority at our institutions.
Well said, Tiffany. Thank you. And talk about a bright future, right? We've seen change happen. There's more change that we can keep doing, but how appropriate. We can continue to evolve and improve. I love that. Zach, as our chair of this effort and this project, would you mind just sharing a little bit about, again, especially as you guys kind of worked specifically in that bridging of the college landscape and the parasport landscape, some lessons learned or some of the extra benefits from that effort?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sarah. I think one of the biggies is at the summit, again, I go back to the different way people did things and how they were separated from athletics and how to navigate the space on their own within the higher education circles. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure as a public university in New York City that's always fighting for resources, I wanted to make sure that we have a financial infrastructure to succeed long term, because I saw the schools that are doing really well, from all the Alabama with their facilities, with UTA Arlington and Alabama and others who are really good in men's and women's wheelchair basketball. They have scholarships across the board for their student athletes. And we need to catch up to them and we'll learn from them. But I think that was a biggie for us, is to make sure that we could work with the partners that we have at hand and then get some partnerships. So we signed a partnership with New Motion. We get USTA support. We're talking a couple grants and a couple foundations for grants. And we're also looking at a couple other sponsors that were really eager to help us, because we're taking advantage of New York City. And the other thing that we're really trying to do for our students, because like the NCAA commercial says, they're going to be professionals in something other than sports. We're really high on internships and job opportunities for our students with disabilities. And our student athletes are totally taking advantage of that. I think just about every single one we have right now either has an internship or a part-time job through the efforts that we put forth through Ryan and I's networking to make sure that they're going to be well off after they graduate, regardless of how their playing career goes. So I think those are some of the lessons that I've learned. And then the people that I met from day one in this space, whether it be at USOPC and the NCAA or in the local organizations that support, like the Achilles Club, like Wheelchair Sports Federation, like Row New York, USTA, like I mentioned, we're staying in touch with them because they're the experts in the field that we're learning from. And we're hoping that we could use those networks, not just for developing of the program as it is, but future generations of students that are coming, let them know that we're an option in this space, that it's a recruiting tool for our colleges, but it's also somewhere where they have as an option to come to for higher education and to continue playing sports, that they don't have to go to the other side of the country or the world to compete. They could compete right here. So those are some of the things that we're walking away from and trying to make sure that we stay strong in that area, because that's what's gotten us thus far in the process.
Oh, I love that, Zach. Even the mechanics, you got to fund it. You got to build the infrastructure around the passion. So I love that. And so much of that we can kind of try to bottle and share with others. So that's phenomenal. So here we've got about 4 minutes left. And what I want to do is we've got one last question for everybody. And then we're going to close out with the thank you so much, Naya, and your team for your willingness to try to, the last minute, show the world commercial. We'll put that at the end as a nice exclamation point to this session. But I'll warn my panelists here in advance. So Toby, you're going to be on the hot seat first. I'll then roll through Alabama, and then Zach and Julie, I'm going to give you the last word. And with that is really talking about, as you're a part of this project, as we work to better build this bridge, what do you hope to see? Like if we look out 10 years, what could this project help us achieve? And what are your advice, if you have any, for those who are on this call and others to help this movement keep going? So with that, Toby, you're first.
Right. I think the project and the initiative to expand, and like we like to use the word awareness, just for everybody to know what's out there, and also to just bring everybody together. As far as the Paralympics and even just adaptive sports, it is big that every 4 years we get the attention and we get the love, but we work just as hard as everybody else does. We're out there every day. We're working extremely hard. And with this opportunity to bring everybody together and give everybody the chance to say, oh, well, I was a high school athlete. I don't have to stop at high school. I have the opportunity to be in the college realm and compete at a high level as well, even if it's with the varsity team or without. This is all an opportunity for everybody to win. We all want to see winners here. And I love the Alabama phrase is that they make legends. That is amazing to me, So that's the best advice that I can give to everybody. Just continue to spread the word, continue to, if you see somebody, tell somebody, and just continue to show love and spread love. So.
Love it. Love it. That's a call to action, everybody. Keep the energy going here. Awesome. All right. I'm going to go to Tiffany and then we'll go to Dr. Harden.
Sure. So, I think this is for the administrators on the call. All of us pretty much got into athletics to make sure that we were supporting, empowering, mentoring, educating young people. And right now we're in a space where we are continuing to evaluate to hopefully evolve and enhance the student athlete experience. Understanding that we can't create a perfect environment, but absolutely placing the expectation on ourselves to create a healthy one for every student athlete. And so as we do that, I would encourage and I would call to action administrators to not only do that within intercollegiate athletics, but extend yourself as a partner to adaptive athletics and make sure that you are evaluating their student athlete experience as well. It's to what Toby said, every single student athlete is a winner. They work just as hard as the next person. And so to not evaluate that student athlete experience to make sure that it's holistic and healthy essentially doesn't align with the mission of probably why most of us got into this industry to begin with. So that would be my request and my call to action.
I love that, Tiffany. Get anchored, right? That's why we're here. Love that. Back to the center, serving. Love it. All right, Dr. Harden, we're going to shift to you.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to take a really big jump here because it's something that we talk about a lot, and this is the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And I think about how things have changed for marginalized populations in sport and how sport's been a vehicle over the years. And, Brown versus Board of Education was that change agent that happened where we were able to bring more people of color within college athletics. Title IX was what really made that happen for women's athletics. And we're still at the beginning in some ways in a lot of those things, but we're way behind that for athletes with disabilities. And I don't know if it'll happen in my lifetime. I tell my student athletes, I think it'll happen in their lifetime, but that really needs to be the next big thing that happens, I believe, is that adapted athletics doesn't need to be separate anymore on campuses. It needs to be a part of the athletic experience. Yeah, that's our mission. That's what we try to do every day. And our program is give our athletes the same experience as the other athletes on campus. And with the kind of things I'm hearing on this call and the kind of support we give here to our athletes, I believe it is possible. And I'm really, really hopeful. And that's my hope. And I guess my call of action is, this is to administrators too, is be visionary. Like Tiffany said, let's be intentional. Let's not be forced to do this by some type of legislation. Let's do it because it's the right thing.
I love that. Strengthening that bridge. That's a beautiful vision. Naya, I'm kind of looking and I hear it looks like we are basically out of time. So
Sorry.
Apologies. Let's see. I think we have to end there. So if you could please, the Show the World video, grab that link right now because it's worth watching. Zach, Julie, maybe a 5-10 second statement of closure, but any last words?
Yes, give us one student athlete from every one of the 1,100 NCAA schools for Team USA. Just give us one. Find them and build them.
Love it. Julie, close us out.
Ditto to everything the other panelists said. Great advice. If I'm looking back 10 years from now, I want us all to think big. I want us to be looking at an NCAA championship in para insert sport here. And with that, back to you, Sarah.
All right. Love it. Love the vision, gang. Thank you, Naya, for the time, and the NCAA staff. You were tremendous. Thank you to the school administrators joining us today. And this horizon is bright. So thank you, everybody, and go Team USA. Take care.